The film opens with two air hostesses named Jenny and Paula, who are in a taxi, making their way to their next flight. They get on the plane before anyone else and get to see one of the pilots, Wilson, who is badly sick. He claims that he's gotten cold and flu from his dog because every other dog in his neighborhood is sick. Soon the second pilot, Forrest, arrives and makes sure Jenny and Paula are all prepared to board passengers on the plane. Jenny is sent to pick up a kid named George from the waiting area. After George, an old couple is brought in. The husband has Parkinson's disease, due to which he is paralyzed. One after another, the passengers show up and start taking their places. A fine gentleman named Henry shows up carrying hamsters in a cage. He tries to put the cage in the luggage area, but the cage is too big to fit in. Another fellow, Ralph, tries stuffing the cage in the luggage area at the back, but a hamster bites one of his fingers. In the end, Jenny insists that she take the hamster cage down in the cargo section. Henry states that the hamsters belong to his kindergarten kids, so she must keep them somewhere safe. When Jenny returns to Paula, she points out that Henry is quite good-looking. Soon, the plane takes off. Jenny is seen demonstrating to everyone how to tie the seatbelts properly. In the back, Ralph uses an extending seatbelt since the regular one doesn't fit around his waist. A few hours after the plane departs, Jenny comes to the passengers to announce that they can use their allowed devices now. She sits down beside George and strikes up a conversation about his parents and him flying alone. There, she spots a man named Niall on a phone call alongside his pregnant wife. She goes to tell him to end the call since it's against the protocols, but Niall ignores her instead. Henry takes action by snatching the phone from him and ending the call, which enrages Niall. Jenny takes Henry to the side and reminds him not to do her part of the job, but Henry claims that he's the one to take action when others fail to get it implemented. Following this, she then stops a foreign couple from making love on their seats and tells an old woman not to let her cat out of her bag. Jenny goes back to Paula and blushes while talking about Henry, and she hopes to exchange numbers with him soon. From her compartment, she spots Ralph in bad condition, so she goes to him and asks if he's okay. Out of breath, he tells her to grab some water for him. When Jenny goes back to grab it, Paula tells her that she's going to give Ralph water instead. Jenny goes and serves everyone their requested beverages. Henry asks for tea. While Jenny gives him that, she spots him watching the news of a building in Los Angeles, where they implemented lockdown without telling the public the reason. Henry laughs it off and says it's good that they're flying away from LA. A few moments later, Jenny spots something seriously wrong with Ralph. When she goes to check up on him, he barfs all over her, and his pupils start to dilate. Paula and others come for help, but Jenny feels embarrassed about not being any help. She runs back to her compartment to clean herself while Paula puts her mask on and looks after Ralph. The old woman's cat sneakily eats some of Ralph's vomit from the ground. When Jenny comes out of her place, Ralph jumps on Jenny and smashes her against the floor. Ralph then starts to bang on the cockpit door, alarming the pilots about what's happening. The pilots refuse to open the doors for the safety of the flight. The men outside, however, tame Ralph and let Paula zip-tie his hands. Ralph zones out right outside the cockpit. Soon, the pilots announce an emergency landing due to the situation. They go through turbulence due to the stormy weather. Jenny and Paula decide to lift Ralph up and fit him in a seat for safety measures. While Jenny runs to the back to grab Ralph's extending seatbelt, Paula bumps into Ralph due to the turbulence, causing Ralph to regain consciousness. Ralph immediately bites Paula's face off, wreaking havoc on the plane. A medic named Shyla shows up and helps control Paula's bleeding by injecting a sedative, but claims she needs medical attention immediately. The men lock Ralph in the bathroom and hold the door from outside. The pilots land without making any communications with the tower and land near a terminal where a baggage handler is wrapping things up and about to go home. He opens the plane door and cusses at them for the inconvenience they're causing him. But looking at the situation, he takes them to the terminal's gate while the pilots hold the door and the old couple stays behind. Upon finding the terminal gate abnormally locked, Ed takes them through the employee entrance but finds the doors and shutters to the airport shut down. He believes that the operators of the airport have initiated a lockdown, which raises his concerns because such protocols have never been initiated, not even when 9/11 occurred. No one answers Ed when he tries to make contact through his walkie-talkie. making the passengers angrier. Soon, they hear police sirens and feel relieved. When George and Jenny look outside through the vents to see who's come to rescue them, they witness all the vents and windows being sealed shut. Everyone calls their loved ones, and Jenny calls her father, but the call goes to voicemail. Everyone starts holding Jenny accountable and complaining about everything that's been happening, making her more nervous. Shyla comes forward and tells Jenny to retrieve her medical bag, through which she can further treat Paula since her bleeding is getting worse. Jenny begs Ed to help her get back to the plane. Henry, Niall, and another black man join them. When they get to the plane, the pilots, Ralph, and the old woman have gone missing. Jenny takes everyone to the cargo section and retrieves the medical bag. Niall retrieves his gun, but Henry's so-called hamsters, who have broken out of their cage, bite Niall. When Jenny is about to get back to the plane, she sees Pilot Wilson infected and crawling at the back of the plane. The other pilot shows up behind Jenny and picks her up. Thankfully, Niall shoots him and saves Jenny. They take the paralyzed old man from the plane and get back to the terminal, where they find the black man bitten and fallen to the ground. Jenny spots the paralyzed man's wife infected too. Everyone gets inside the employee's entrance and locks the infected woman outside. Inside, Niall unites with his wife and kisses her. Shyla treats Paula. George gives Jenny her phone and tells her that her father called her and told her to take charge of the situation. Jenny walks to everyone and confidently tells everyone to follow her command, because after the pilots, the passengers are her duty to look after. While everyone argues about the infection and its spread, Henry's hamster infiltrates the place and bites the paralyzed man's head. Everyone traps the old man behind a chained room for their safety. George runs to save him. Ed and Henry trap the hamster under a drum. Ed notices that these are lab rats because they have tags on their legs. George also points out that he had a hamster before, and he knows they don't grow tails this long. Pointing fingers at Henry, George claims he's lying. Jenny takes him aside and asks him to tell the truth, but he reminds her that security wouldn't have let him through if they'd seen the rats and swears that he didn't know what he was carrying. The infected Ralph spawns out of nowhere and attacks Jenny once again. This time, Henry and other men put a cable around his neck and strangle him to death. Simultaneously, Ed is notified that men from disease control have come to rescue them. The men take Niall's weapon and force everyone to take the protocol vaccine before getting out. Henry and the men take out Paula and the paralyzed man to get the vaccines first. While the agents force everyone else to take the vaccine too, the old woman's cat, who's infected after eating Ralph's vomit, bites her neck. The paralyzed man also gets up and bites an agent's neck to shreds, causing other agents to open fire. Monitoring everything through CCTV cameras, the authorities lock everyone inside. The agents shoot open the locks and run outside. The foreign man also runs after them, but they are all shot to death by the authorities outside. Ed drags in one of the agents and takes everyone to hide in a container. Niall gets turned and snatches his wife before she gets inside the container. There, they force him to tell them what's going on. The man tells little about the virus that spread through the building that was sealed after the authorities found a lab that was creating this infection and testing it on human subjects. He then takes the gun from Henry and shoots himself. The infected pilot climbs up the container and tries coming inside from the open roof. Ed holds him back and tells George to push a green button and activate the lift, which causes the pilot to crush between the trailer and the beam above it. Ed takes the remaining ones to the engineer's room to look for blueprints of an underground tunnel through which they can escape. Henry gets lost, and Paula comes to attack the others. With a heavy heart, Jenny takes her out using a wrench, causing Paula to fall to the lower level and bleed to death. In the engineer's room, George opens Henry's stolen bag and finds a vial of antidote and blueprints, confirming that he was a worker in the lab that created the virus. While everyone else finds the blueprint for the tunnel, Niall and his wife show up to attack them. Henry shoots them and Ed and forces George to give back his antidote, which he injects inside his eyelids in order to prevent the infection since he's been bitten too. There, he admits that he's one of the good guys from the lab who wants to reduce the population through this infection and save Earth's resources. Now, Henry holds George hostage and flees. Left behind, Jenny and Shyla decide to go after him. Outside, Jenny comes in contact with multiple infected zombies, but manages to secure herself. Shyla shows up wearing one of the agent's thermal vision goggles. She hands it over to Jenny and shows her that she's bitten. She points at where Henry has taken George and runs back to distract the zombies, since she's infected too. Now Jenny wears the thermal goggles and goes to a dark ditch to save George, but Henry attacks her. George shoots Henry and saves Jenny, who further smacks Henry's face and puts him to death. In the end, Jenny and George find a way out through a vent. George takes the lead. He looks back and finds out Jenny has been bitten and is slowly turning into a zombie too. He doesn't give up on Jenny, and when he makes it out of the vent through bars, he calls for Jenny, but she's turned into a zombie who tries to bite George. He saves himself and waits to be rescued. While the old woman's infected cat is seen heading to the city, the film ends. Thank you for being a part of Instant Movie Recaps. If these tales of mystery and intrigue sent shivers down your spine, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Instant Movie Recap for more bone-chilling narratives. Stay tuned, and until next time, stay captivated.